What is poverty?
Basic, yet so complex.
In this video, we aim to teach you about the various measures of poverty and conclude the best approach. Narrated by Jaeya Taxali
and Cece Eklum.
To start, poverty is a term we often associate with the idea of people lacking money and resources,
like food, shelter, and clothes,
to provide for themselves and their families. However, while this is true, poverty is a much more complex issue where money is only one factor that reflects how a person is doing economically. Additionally, poverty is a systemic problem, not an individual problem, meaning that many factors and societal issues lead to poverty. Through our research and perspective so far, we define poverty as an economic state where an individual lacks the necessary resources to meet their just standard of living and is endangering their well-being,
including threats to their mental and physical health.
When analyzing this issue, we must explore the difference between extreme and relative poverty. This information will help us determine which measure accounts for the most people and not solely the median.
Both the extreme and relative poverty measure use cash income as a measure of an individual's resources. However, the extreme poverty threshold is when a person is living on $2 per day or less. This is used as a global measure of purchasing power parity, whereas in the relative poverty measure, the threshold is set at a percentage of median household income in a country.
Since the extreme poverty measure sets one rate globally, it is very simple to use. However, it is difficult to accurately assess poverty in countries with disparities in health, education, and housing.
The relative poverty measure is comparative economic deprivation, according to Iceland, that shows how an individual is doing compared to the rest of the members of that society. A flaw of this measure is that the incomes below the median are not always an even distribution, so this could underestimate the amount of people facing poverty.
Let us now explore the most common ways of measuring poverty. These methods include the official poverty measure, known as the OPM, the supplemental poverty measure, known as the SPM, and the capabilities approach.
To begin, the OPM is the official poverty measure in the United States, which takes the gross annual pre-tax income of single individuals or related individuals in a household from salary and cash benefits. The threshold for the OPM is set at 3 times the amount of food necessary to maintain a nutritious yet simple diet. The only adjustments made on the OPM are for inflation and family size.
The supplemental poverty measure, more commonly known as the SPM, is a more effective measure than the OPM due to the following reasons. First off, the data reflects more accuracy considering non-cash benefits are included in the measure. For example, a family that may fall under the poverty threshold in OPM but has access to non-cash benefits within the SPM may fall above the threshold. These non-cash benefits include SNAP, Program for Women, school meals, tax credits, and stimulus payments.
Second, basing a poverty threshold by geographic region is a better way to measure people's income in a particular area. For example, an individual living in New York has more expensive housing and living costs than someone in rural Virginia. Location is a logical factor that should be considered.
Third, the SPM measure includes co-residents. In contrast, the OPM only includes blood-related family members into their poverty measure. This excludes divorced couples, adopted children, and anybody who is unrelated. The SPM fortunately accounts for a wider spectrum of family situations.
Up to this point, you can see while the OPM and SPM share many similarities, the SPM introduced some key improvements.
While we prefer the SPM measure of poverty over the OPM, neither option is the best method of measuring poverty.
While the SPM is more inclusive to factors beyond monetary values, its approach still excludes minority and marginalized groups, health problems, political freedom, and so much more.
A key reason we do not prefer the SPM or OPM as the best measure of poverty is that deprivation can vary among race, gender, age group, family type, family size, and other factors.
In recent trends, the feminization of poverty, as stated by Meyer and Wallace, has become clear, with 41% of people in poverty coming from female-headed households and 12% coming from single females.
Individuals marginalized in multiple ways are at the greatest risk of falling into a deeper poverty gap.
Now, in addition to the OPM and SPM, let's discuss functionings and capabilities and their role in poverty.
Functionings are the basis for capabilities, which sentence says reflect the state of a person.
They're actions that an individual can take when fulfilling their potential.
Some of the most basic functionings are being nourished and clothed, while others are more complex like social integration and self-esteem.
Functionings are instrumental to daily life, and to fulfill certain functionings, an individual must have the required capabilities for those functionings.
Beyond functionings, capabilities can be defined as the freedom to fulfill one's potential through access to their desired opportunities, also known as the functioning a person can achieve.
In a perfectly non-impoverished world, everyone will have the financial capability and quality of life to pursue any passion and action they have the potential to do.
Nussbaum categorizes capabilities into internal, combined, basic, and central capabilities. Internal capabilities are the skills and features that cannot be fixed. For example, a person who is naturally better at science will have a higher capability of succeeding on a science exam without studying.
Combined capabilities include all the internal capabilities and characteristics of a person, in addition to the social, economic, and political conditions of their environment. Basic conditions are the foundational and initial conditions of a person's life that allow them to be advantaged or disadvantaged in development. This can include maternal care and care in the womb.
Nussbaum explains central capabilities as having 10 key points. 1. The capability to live a full and healthy life while living to a median age.
2. The ability to be healthy, both mentally and physically, through proper nutrition and exercise.
3. Bodily integrity, meaning one can go where they choose, safe from violence, sexual assault, and misconduct.
4. The ability to have senses, imagination, and thought.
5. The ability to feel emotion.
6. The liberty of consciousness and the ability for religious observance.
7. Affiliation to one or more groups of interest.
8. The ability to appreciate other species and beings.
9. To play and the ability to have a break.
10. To have political and material control of one's environment. With capabilities comes tragic choice, a situation where an individual has to choose between two capabilities, both of which are essential for preserving human dignity. For example, having to choose between getting necessary medical treatment and attending school. In this case, the person is forced to choose between bodily health and sense, imagination, and thought.
Corrosive disadvantage, on the other hand, is when the deprivation of one capability causes a threat to others. For example, a victim of sexual assault loses bodily integrity and then loses bodily health, the ability to reason and control over one's emotional well-being.
The Human Development Index combines measures of health, education, and income to convey how a country is doing economically.
Next, the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index focuses on problems in health, education, and living standards in over 100 developing countries through examining nutrition, mortality, number of years attending school, and living amenities. After reviewing the OPM, SPM, Human Development Index, Global Multidimensional Poverty Index, and capabilities approaches, we are concluding that the best measure of poverty is the central capabilities approach. In addition to focusing on household income and monetary expenses, there is so much more to a person and their quality of life than solely basic resources. Both Sen and Nussbaum don't view people as numbers facing poverty for a statistic, but rather views them as real people with real lives, dreams, goals, and emotions.
A common word people use is enough. For example, how much does this family need to have enough to survive? Enough resources cannot justify a good, fulfilling, capable quality of life. For that reason, the central capabilities approach states people have the freedom of choice to believe and say what they want, freedom to go wherever they want in the world and their community without harm, and freedom to play.
While we have concluded that the central capabilities approach is the best measure, it is necessary to understand a different perspective. In Rector's Air Conditioning, Cable TV, and Xbox article, he argues that the range of poverty is so vast that many people in poverty aren't suffering as much as the media, news sources, and stereotypes imply they do. For example, the media often portrays the extreme destitute of poverty through images of people sleeping on benches, begging for food on the streets, and often, news sources focus their attention on people of color. While the poverty illustrated is real, it does not reveal all groups experiencing poverty, but rather stereotypes it.
A key argument Rector attempts to make is 97.7% of poor U.S. households own a TV, making it seem like poor people live an easier life due to one amenity. Let's say a family lived with an air conditioning unit, a refrigerator, and a television. While this setup may sound adequate for a basic standard of living, one may not be able to pay the electricity bill, food to put in the fridge, or cable to watch the TV. Additionally, amenities are not representative of the education a child is getting or the equal access to health care a family is receiving.
All in all, Rector's measurement of poverty does not allow people to have a fulfilling life, as it only accounts for factors and resources necessary to survive.
Thanks for watching!